Alright, how's it going everyone? Gamma Fighter here, coming at you with another Sylvaneth video. And in this video, we're taking a look at the question, are the Sylvaneth good now in Age of Sigmar 4th edition? And you know me, I get right into it. I do not drag this out. I think we're in a really solid spot. And that's just what I want to explore in this video. I think Sylvaneth is solid, not oppressive, not super dominant or anything. Definitely have bad matchups still, but I think we're in a really good place. And if you want to be competitive and bring Sylvaneth to a tournament, then I think you can do that. So we're going to take a look at some of the things behind that. So first, I want to take a look at the September 24 2024. I don't know why I call it that. I think I named the file that. The 2024 September battle scroll update that changed some of our abilities and what I was thinking about it and kind of what it's looking like now. I always watch the battle reports that show up on YouTube, and I went back and watched a bunch of them again. And yeah, this was kind of some of my observations and some of my feeling, as well as kind of looking at the community and what people have been saying about Sylvaneth and their experience that they haven't like uploaded videos for. So first of all, changing tree song, they changed the range from 18 to 24, and they changed the distance from 1 inch away from enemy units and terrain features, or sorry, from 3 inches down to only 1 inch. I think I forget what I said on this. I probably should have watched my own video back, actually. I think that I was thinking that the range wasn't going to be that big of a deal, but that this 1 inch was so much easier than 3 inches, just because of the way the terrain is set up on the recommended way that GW officially recommends people to set up terrain. It just did make some awkward situations, especially if you wanted to put down more than one terrain piece. Now that's a lot easier, and being able to put down 2 or even 3 pieces for an Awakened Wildwoods is a lot easier. And I actually think I underestimated mostly the 24 inches. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal, but yeah, I think it really does help and just make it so much easier for us to put down the Awakened Wildwoods. Now, the Alarielle nerf, that wasn't a big deal. It's how the ability was supposed to work. You used to be able to set her up, and then that was a new Alarielle when you brought her back to life, and then that counted as a new Alarielle, so you could use the ability again. It's not how it's supposed to work, so that was just a fix, no big deal. Adding 5 wards to the Awakened Wildwood, I think I probably overestimated this. If you've watched some of my videos before, you know that I love Ward 5. Yeah, so I think I probably overestimated that. And I think I also overestimated this ability where normally the abilities work wholly within 6 inches of Awakened Wildwoods. Those abilities get improved by 3 inches for each piece, like each piece of tree that you add to the terrain feature when you set up an Awakened Wildwood. So the range can be up to wholly within 6 inches. I thought that if we were wholly within 9, that could be a very solid ability. Like it would really improve us. And so I thought wholly within 12 would make it just really strong. But I really haven't seen people use much except for basically Alarielle's base is bigger than 6 inches, so now it's just easier for her to be within range to heal from our faction ability. Other than that, I haven't really seen people abusing like teleportation from the faction ability or any other abilities really, other than basically it's easier to heal Alarielle. And that kind of just doubled down on people bringing Alarielle, even though it probably doesn't factor into people's thinking, actually. It's more like it just helps her to be a little bit more effective because she can heal a little bit easier. So I think that, yeah, this was not as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. And then with the manifestation lore, the vengeful skull root counts as an Awakened Wildwood. I didn't think that would matter, and it has not mattered. I do see people trying it. Now, I know that battle reports on YouTube, they're not always the most competitive-minded types of things, so I do keep that in mind, kind of take it with a grain of salt. Each channel has kind of a different level of competitiveness versus kind of fun that they're trying to have, and I do keep that in mind. So I've seen some of the more fun-based channels trying to make this do something, not really working. Actually, they did see the Glade Worm working, like teleporting to wizards and just annihilating them, which is pretty cool. But they brought kind of the manifestation lore for Sylvaneth to try out this Awakened Wildwood ability, and then actually what they found was the Glade Worm still being the most effective one, which is kind of my prediction as well. So I do think that the the combination of this battle scroll update and people kind of finding a way that works in 4th edition against the meta teams, I think that has kind of put us in this pretty good spot that I think we're in as a faction. So that's what I think makes us kind of competitive. I do want to take a closer look though, and if you've already watched this channel for a while, then these next slides may seem a little bit familiar, but we're going to be going through the battle tactics. And this was kind of a prediction video that I did really early on in 4th edition about what units we could use or what battle tactics were available to Sylvaneth, and then how we can use that knowledge to shape our army. What units are going to be good in these battle tactics, and then use that to guide our, do we see any patterns and that type of a thing. So just to make this go a little bit quicker, starting with Reclaim the Realms, this was having one in each battle corner, or battlefield quarter, not corner, quarter. This is the order one, and I do think that this is really one, and I think I predicted this before as well. This is one of opportunity. We haven't been running a ton of units, and so this is sort of like, if you get to towards the end of the game and you just have the opportunity to do this, then it's worth doing. But it's really not like one of your primary ones that you go for early on. It's too easy for your opponent to disrupt. So now Slay the Tyrants is the other order ability or battle tactic to slay an enemy hero, and this one is also one of those where it's going to depend, it's more of like opportunity and that type of a thing. This is good for order because it's usually pretty easy. It does depend on the army that you're facing, as I noted here. If you're fighting a Maw Crusher, it might, and that's the only opportunity or target that you have available, it's going to be really tough. But I don't think this one is like super big for us. It's generally when your opponent's out of position or they've got something that's already weakened. One of the good things about us is that we do have that ability to just melt something. We're seeing a lot of people run Kurnoth bows, and they have Ren +1 against enemy heroes, and so they can really soften up a target before you charge something in. We've also got Belthanos that gives run and charge, which helps us to get into position better. Spite Rider Lancers, people really aren't bringing so much. But then the Kurnoth swords, Kurnoth scythes, and then the Spirit of Durthu, they can really blend any kind of enemy hero for the most part. Again, there's always going to be exceptions, but this is one that we're pretty good at doing. I think most armies are pretty good at doing because it's about how are you able to kill. But we're just, I think, a little bit better when you combine the run and charge plus the killing power plus the ability to soften something up if it does need to be softened up first. Next, for Do Not Waver, these are the kind of the units that I predicted were going to be good. I think that what's really good is people are bringing bulkier heroes like Spirit of Durthu, Alariel, and Belthanos, and you have to make sure that none of your units get destroyed when you're attempting this battle tactic, and this is kind of what I predicted, that these would really help us with that, and I was pretty much right. I definitely overestimated the power of Spite Rider Lancers in this whole presentation. Maybe they are underrated, but I'm willing to try it someday. But with the Strike First, the mobility, honestly, I really want to try 2 MSU Spite Rider Lancer units instead of a Gossamed Archer and Tree Revenant, and use those Spite Rider Lancers, do a little bit more killing than Tree Revenants can, but also still being able to be very mobile. I think that might be a good plan. But what do I know? But the big thing with this is, we do have these big bulky units, and it's with the run and charge as well from Belthanos, if it's pretty easy for us to get into the combats we want to get into and then not have our units destroyed. So I think this is a really strong one for Sylvaneth. These can mess you up. Part of what made this easier was I already have this presentation available, but I kind of want to go back and look at, because this is what, I guess I should have started with this. This is what makes you good in Age of Sigmar 4th edition, being able to do battle tactics and being able to kill the enemy. So let's take a look at the battle tactics here and why we're good in 4th edition currently. Honestly, yeah, and we'll get to it, but Alariel and Belthanos, I've harped on the fact that they are just not very killy for how many points you have to invest into them. So it must be that we're really, really good at these battle tactics, and we're just pretty good at surviving as well. So yeah, which is cool, very cool. So take their land, pick a terrain feature. I don't, this is another good thing too about us is that there's a lot of pretty good flexible lists that you can bring. Tree Revenants and Gossamet Archers can complete this battle tactic really easily, especially the Tree Revenants. When people bring Tree Revenants, this is like a easy win. They get this one pretty much automatically, as long as they make sure that they keep the Tree Revenants alive first. Oh yeah, that's what I said here. Tree Revenants kind of make this free. But the thing is, people don't always even bring Tree Revenants, and they don't necessarily do take their land, but they're still able to complete their battle tactics enough to put a pretty good showing on average for Sylvaneth players. So when you're crafting your list, you can make that decision. Do I want to have these sort of objective monkeys, or people are calling them prospectors now, that go out and earn the victory points, or do I want something that is focused more on the fighting, combat, killing stuff, battle tactics, and then invest more of my power into, or more of my points into killing power, that type of thing. And we see both having quite a bit of success in Sylvaneth currently. We've also got Slay the Entourage, kill an enemy general's unit. And let's see, walk ahead and pass. Yeah, that was more comparing to 3rd edition here. And, Belthanos does make this easier in that you can get into the position that you need to be quite a bit easier with the run and charge. And, this one's kind of a no-brainer. It's just that it's going to depend on what units are available, do you have the power to kill them, that type of thing. And then Belthanos just helps us to get into the position better. For Seize the Center, this is one that usually is done in turn 1 if you are going to be doing it. And what's good about this too is that you can also do this later as an opportunity. It's easier than the one where you have to be in all 4 quarters of the board. But so if you choose to take the flanks on turn 1, and then you leave Seize the Center open and available for later, which is pretty good, but also kind of vice versa. There's also times when people have gone Seize the Center early and then had the opportunity to take the flanks later as enemy units have kind of dwindled. Yeah, and as well as the 4 quarters one, the positioning, all the positioning battle tactics here. So particularly on this, Alariel and Belthanos and the Spirit of Durthu are quite bulky. So the flaw with Seize the Center, the downside to doing this battle tactic is it's fairly easy to get turn 1, but then your opponent has, it's really easy for your opponent then to charge into those units that you did it with. And so Alariel and Spirit of Durthu in particular, Belthanos as well, to a lesser extent. So what I mean by that is, before I even finish my sentence, people tend to play Belthanos on the flanks to do the take the flanks type of stuff, to bully smaller units, chaff off of objectives, because it doesn't really matter where Belthanos is. His ability works to give run and charge. That works across the whole map, wherever he is. So people usually put him on the edges where it's a little bit more safe generally. So that's why I say Alariel with Tree Lords, and actually Alariel with the Kurnoth Hunters with Scythes as well, kind of as a bodyguard, and in fact taking the Honor Guard, bodyguard ability, so that when your opponent does charge into you, because you put yourself right in the center of the map, when they charge into you on their turn 1, then you've got the anti-charge Ren +1, you've got the bodyguard ability reducing the number of the attacks the enemy can do, and really being able to dampen the enemy's ability to clap back. Now, I think a Branch Witch thrown in there would be pretty cool, but there's just not enough room in the lists, and it adds more drops and that type of thing. But we're seeing this, the combination of kind of bulkiness and then being able to choose what you do with your Honor Guard on the fly. That's another good thing about Sylvaneth. maybe I'm jumping ahead, but is that we can make pretty good use of the different honor guard abilities and then adapt the abilities we choose to the situation that we're in. And so if you do want to use Alariel and then Kurnoth bows or Kurnoth scythes to complete Seize the Center early, then you can really protect Alariel with the bodyguard ability, and it's really fantastic. Or if you want better shooting power, you're up against an enemy army that's going to be more susceptible to shooting. They've got some foot heroes you want to target, all that kind of stuff. Then you can give the priority target to the bow hunters and be able to make a better use of the honor guard ability in that way, rather than needing the bodyguard ability. And that flexibility is really quite powerful. So yeah, I think that's really good. And I think we've shown pretty good use of Seize the Center. I think I was pretty right with this prediction. Yeah, and like I said, if you didn't watch my previous video, it's tough because it leaves you out of position. We have the ability to prepare to deal with that, which not always advisable to just move everything into the middle of the board. But honestly, I've seen it both ways in battle reports. I've seen even on competitive channels, people be like, listen, I'm just going to push everything to the middle and see what happens. I've seen them get destroyed completely by turn 2 and just unable to recover. But I've also seen people actually do pretty good, depending on the opponent, the opponent's skill, the opponent army, all that kind of stuff. So next, attack on 2 fronts, controlling 2 objectives, and at least one of them that was controlled by the opponent. And just thinking about this one, this is another one that's definitely of opportunity, but we have the ability to get there. I think Belthanos is really the star here, being able to get there. If you bring the Tree Revenants, your opponent always has to be aware of not only this battle tactic, but the ability of your Tree Revenants to teleport onto an objective that's maybe deep in their territory. They have to make sure that they have the ability to either contest it or come back and kick your Tree Revenants off of it. And yeah, I've seen a lot with this one, with even with trying to disrupt other ones, like take their lands, people doing those battle tactics with Tree Revenants and being like, you have the opportunity to disrupt this, but if you do, then your guys are out of position, so I'm happy if you do that. So it's kind of a win-win situation, and that's my favorite thing in any kind of games, putting your opponent in really difficult situations where they either have to, in this case, give you points, like allow you to complete a battle tactic uncontested, or they have to really put their guys out of position so that you actually benefit more, but you don't get the points. So kind of a win-win situation for you. I really like that. All right, take the flanks. And so this is the other one that's done on turn 1. And yeah, and this was more for people who are kind of coming into this new, just to think about that you don't want, my note at the bottom here, that on a lot of battle plans, the 2 units that do this are going to be out of position once they do this battle tactic. So you don't want to be putting, reinforced units of Kurnoth hunters on the flanks to do this, and then having them, move 4 inches or 5 inches. I forget how far we move. I've been painting a lot. All right, I'll talk about that later. But just moving slowly, walking towards the middle of the board to try and do something. 3 turns later, you're going to want to use the more expendable type of thing, cheaper units. But yeah, I mean, even going with this, Gossamer Archers and Tree Revenants are really good for this because they're so cheap. You cannot teleport, so Tree Revenants teleport is off the table, but you can have them run and auto run on most boards. They can make that pretty easily. Gossamer Archers definitely very easily. Even being able to shoot and then move forward if they just can't get far enough for whatever reason. This is a very solid turn 1 for us to do, and you don't even need both Gossamer Archers and Tree Revenants. You could have Belthanos being the other flank doing this. So yeah, really solid battle tactic that's pretty consistent for Sylvaneth to pull off. And yeah, I think I was pretty well spot on here that these are really good units, but like I said before, we have a lot of flexibility in the lists that we can bring, in the way that we can play them, and even the honor guard ability that we give them during the game. So let's take a look now at the units that make us up. This is not going to be a total total like what's it called? Recache of the, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Of the whole thing. I want to, oh no, now you see what time I'm recording this. Maybe you don't. Single page, that's what I wanted. This is not going to be a whole rehash of the entire like war scrolls. Um, I'm just going to go over the units that people are bringing and why they're strong, why they're useful, and not go into all the details here. But Alario's quite tanky, 16 health on a 3-up save, 6-up ward, quite good. Wizard 3 is great. If you bring her, she's the only wizard that you need. She's quite tanky. She does okay damage, but compared to, the real damage dealers in the army, not so much, just for how much points you have to pay for her. But she can still deal with units pretty good, with enemy units pretty good, and of course survive quite well. You can strike and fade her out of there if, depending on the circumstances. You can power through her to retreat from the enemy if you don't completely destroy them, and then get her back to a place where she can heal a bit easier and safer. So really quite good. Yeah, there's not much to say. Other than that, the ability to bring back units is, of course, very good. But I predicted early on that if you were going to be bringing units back, then you were going to want maybe even MSU, so that you could attempt this every single turn, and then you bring back 2 Kurnoth Hunters. Instead of doubling up and reinforcing a unit, then you'd be bringing back 3 Kurnoth Hunters, but you can't fit as many units in, and then you might not be able to use this Rite of Light ability every turn. I thought maybe MSU would be better, but yeah, it turns out it doesn't matter. People are bringing Belthanos and Spirit of Durthu and stuff, and if she brings those back, it's a huge swing in power, which is awesome. Or skipping Lady of Vines. Yeah, I really like Lady of Vines, but people have not really been bringing her competitively. Draika, the same thing. Yeah, I very rarely see Draika, except on very fun-oriented lists and YouTubers and stuff. Belthanos, I completely underestimated him, and I thought his ability was awesome. So just goes to show. I was looking more at the damage output that he can do, but 14 health on a 3-up save is pretty good. I was thinking you would want like a Warsong Revenant or the Lady of Vines to give him a ward to help him be more survivable. But really, the tactic that people are doing is kind of trying to keep him on the outskirts of the battle. Like I said before, putting him on the flank so that he can bully some chaff who's trying to take the flanks, or trying to just hold an objective for free, basically. He can go in there and bully them off and cap an objective from the opponent. And his key ability is going to be usable from anywhere on the board. Also keeping him sort of in reserve, sort of the cavalry to come in when things are tied up, when the enemy's focusing on Alariel or Kurnoth Hunters or something, kind of these more important targets, he can come in. Now, where people have failed, though, is relying on his power too much, being a little too aggressive with him, and getting caught out of position with him. I've seen people lose Belthanos on turn 1 or turn 2, which means that it's just a ton of wasted points. So Belthanos very good. I think people have figured out how to play him, though, kind of keeping him in reserve like that. I say overextending and stuff, but he really can go very far as well. And part of what's so good about bringing Belthanos is that he can make himself, if you do bring Spite Rider Lancers and Alariel, a threat to basically everywhere on the board. They can move really, really far with his ability, with auto running, getting a solid charge off, and not even needing to make the charge necessarily, but just threatening to have that ability to do that from the beginning and pin your opponent. It can shape the way that they have to deploy and stuff like that. So I think that's a more advanced tactic as people play with the Sylvaneth army more. They will see the power in that and the threat projection that Belthanos has. You'd still have to be careful with him. You can't overextend him and fully commit him. But even if you do go really far in there with him, and maybe snipe out like an enemy wizard, foot wizard that they thought was far back enough. You can, well, I mean, if he's in combat with something else still, he can power through to escape type of stuff. Anyways, all that to say, something to think about that I think is one of the more tricky movement-based things that still makes us really good when we lost a lot of our movement-based shenanigans with teleport being neutered, like it has been from 3rd edition. Warsong Revenant, really not seeing it as much as I thought I would. Again, that was my play style that I like to do. You know, that's still how I'm building my army, is to include a Warsong Revenant, just because that's the kind of play style I like and will have fun with. So, yeah, Arch Revenant, Spirit of Durthu. I definitely rightly predicted Spirit of Durthu. This was one that I said was going to be really key. He's very efficient. He's also very bulky and defensive. We saw the battle tactics that helps in. He also can really blend, meaning destroy enemies. He's not as efficient as some, or sorry, he's not as high end on power as some, but he's still very efficient. And having that all packed onto one body is very good. His abilities don't really matter even that much. All his values in the top, quarter or third of the screen. So yeah, Spirit of Durthu is really good. Tree Lord and Tree Lord Ancient, I really predicted that these would see more play, thinking that Sylvaneth would be forced to play more defensively. And the game designers' stated intent that they wanted to slow the game down a bit and make things more survivable. That really hasn't been the case. Yeah, from what I've seen, it just really didn't happen. Maybe on some scale, but people are always going to be gravitating towards the more powerful things, the more damaging things, and armies tend to be more glass hammer type of things, or glass cannon. So being super bulky but not really being able to do that much damage is not as good as I thought it would be. Branch Witch I'm not seeing really. Gossamer Archer I'm seeing featured quite prominently, but as I mentioned before, I thought they'd be mandatory. One of these and the Tree Revenants as objective monkeys or prospectors, but I'm seeing these are actually pretty optional. They do make it easier for you to get certain battle tactics, but maybe not giving you quite as much power. And these lists that are bringing Alariel and Belthanos, they've got a lot of points invested into utility, and I think then from there, the remaining points, they tend to just be going for power, as much power as they can pack in there. So not really spending as much on Gossamer Archers and Tree Revenants, even though they are very cheap. The Twistfield I really haven't seen. Spite Rider Lancers, I've seen attempted a couple of times, but not really on the very competitive channels. I think maybe people are sleeping on this unit, but I think people have found it's just not quite as strong as the competitors in other armies, as well as the competitors internally, Kurnoth Hunters, Spirit of Durthu, those types of things. Revenant Seekers, I've only really seen these in fun lists, giving the improved rally roll and the incidental crit mortals, helping them be a little bit consistent, but they still haven't performed very well. And then, yeah, Kurnoth Hunters with swords, I have seen they do very well, as I predicted. This is a really powerful unit with we're pretty slow, 5 inches. I knew it. I think I said 4, but I like dwarves in Old World too. I don't have any, but I like the idea. So I think they have a 4-inch move. Maybe it's 3 inches now that I think about it. Anyways, Kurnoth Hunters, pretty slow, but the run and charge does give us more range with them. And the damage is really, really solid. I compared this unit to other similar units in other armies, and this is really the only unit in our faction that is comparable to other factions' best units. So very good. I have even seen people running with scythes, not like running with scissors, like they might trip and hurt themselves, but running lists with the hunters with scythes, playing more of a defensive style. Like I said, the bodyguard ability to keep Alariel safe, more of like a porcupine kind of a unit. It's hard for me to evaluate because I think I'd have to be there at the table, not seeing a YouTube video view of like the top down where things are super small and you're seeing the top of their head, so it's kind of harder to recognize things. Not impossible, but just visually a little bit more of a confusing look. Again, no hate against YouTubers who do battle reports. I think they're awesome. I think everyone from the best channels that are doing a great job. Season of War, Battleshock Gaming, those are my favorites. But all the way down to the people that are just using like their phone to video themselves and their friends, like no complaints whatsoever. I think everyone's doing a great job with those. But it's just the nature of the medium that if you were there in the space having a 3D view, with your 3D eyes that you have, you'd have a much better idea of where things are in space and distance and those types of things. Anyways, all that to say, hard for me to kind of evaluate, but it does change the playstyle of the army. People running with the scythes are definitely more defensive, trying to protect Alariel a little bit more. I think that's probably a good idea, especially if you are running the scythes. I think the great swords can be a bit more aggressive on their end, and then let Alariel maybe hold the center, be a little bit more cagey towards the center, while the Kurnoth Hunters kind of clean up a little bit of her flanks type thing. But yeah, I'm just going into speculation here. But I all to wrap that up and say that I have seen Kurnoth size used to good effect in videos of battle reports for sure. And of course, the famous bow hunters. We did get a nerf to priority target, so it doesn't work at our full 18-inch range. It only works within 12 inches, but we still can ignore the guarded hero ability, meaning we can target enemy heroes. We get the +1 rend against them, and we don't get the -1 to hit because the whole ability is ignored. That's very powerful. The shooting is not the greatest compared to other armies, other factions' shooting units, but you really have to pick your targets really well with the Kurnoth Hunters. If you're shooting a foot hero, you are shooting to kill. If you're shooting a enemy unit, like a hammer or something, you're shooting to soften that thing up as much as possible on their turn before they charge in, or on your turn before you charge into them. And there's tons of really good use for that. I feel like I've been a little bit of a hater on the bows and saying like it's just too much points for not enough damage, but I'm not fully invested into that. I'm perfectly willing to be wrong on that. I think I have said if you're going to bring a reinforced unit of Kurnoth Hunters with bows, I have no problem with that. I think I don't think that's like a mistake or anything like that by any means. For my playstyle, it's not what I would be choosing most of the time. I'd definitely try it out, but yeah. Anyways, great effect on this, helping us complete those battle tactics that we looked at earlier. Dryads, criminally underutilized. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I really want to play a list with a bunch of Dryads, but yeah, I just think there hasn't been that much space in the lists. I think Belthanos and Durthu and Alariel playing those big chonky units has been the playstyle. Fits in with what I speculated at the beginning of the edition, that they were pushing us towards a more defensive style. Unlike what I thought, we're not full defensive, but having that one solid big body that can be defensive and heal back up has been the way that people have been playing. Dryads, they're a little bit different from that. They don't benefit from the healing because they only have 1 health. So I think there's room for them, but again, not in the super competitive way of playing. Tree Revenants are great objective monkeys and all that, as we already said. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Spite Revenants not being used and the not being used in competitive lists. And then the Manifestation lore still not super competitive. Like, even with changes, not very good compared to stuff like the Morbid Conjuration, the Primal Energy, and things like that, which probably I should have prepared for as well. I have seen people, but I'll just add it as an aside here. I've seen people using Morbid Conjuration with lots of spell casting, people using the Primal Energy for the healing of the Life Swarm, as well. The Burning Skull and the Gnashing Jaws are pretty solid power, like damage manifestations as well. And then it's Aether Wrought Machineries. For the Aether Cogs, I've seen people use that to keep Alariel safe. I forget what it does. Is it -1 to hit or -1 to wound? against wizards, something like that. That's been really good too. So another good thing about the flexibility that we have available to us. Obviously, you can't tweak that on the fly, but you can see you can use all these different the top three kind of manifestation lures that people are using in general. Those work really well. All three of them work well depending on your list in Sylvaneth. So that's pretty cool. And as far as the spell lore, I think the +1 to rend has been pretty good. Obviously, we need the Awakened Wildwoods to function, and then I have not really been seeing the Dwellers Below do that well. Theoretically, if there was a bunch of like Moon Clan Stabas, from the Gloomspike Gits, then this would work super well, or reinforced clan rats or something. But like the Gits are bringing trolls, so Dwellers Below is like a lot less good on that. So it just hasn't been that impactful. Although I was excited for it at the beginning of the edition. Manifestation lore. What was I looking for in here? I started coming here for some. Oh, Spellsinger. Yes, Spellsinger is very good. This is sort of Arcane Tome from last edition, and Arcane Tome was brought in almost every list that could bring it. So I think I severely underestimated this. Even though I said it was probably the best one. Yeah, I did say it was the best one, I think. But yeah, this is really powerful. I do look at other people like talking about other factions and stuff, and then like I just think about Spellsinger. Like it's really good. Usually making Spirit of Durthu into a wizard, maybe not completely tipping the scales of the battle, but just very useful. So that with Durthu and Alariel, you've got 3 spell casts per turn for units that you were going to bring anyways. So that's really useful. And I've seen that super effective, as well as the Artifact of Power Seed of Rebirth. Very good, especially, again, you're usually seeing this on Spirit of Durthu. The other 2 I really wanted to be good because they're just more fun. They deal damage. But yeah, if you can keep Spirit of Durthu alive and then he gets killed the next turn and then you bring him back to life with Alariel, that's such a thorn in the side of your opponent, and that pun's perfectly intended there. So that's it for the state of Sylvaneth now. I think, the other thing I kind of wanted to summarize, mostly I see people playing with Alariel. It's pretty rare for people not to have Alariel. So if you're thinking about building Sylvaneth, or you're thinking about how you can build your lists, you really do want Alariel at this point if you're going to want to emulate what success people have had previously. The other unit would be Belthanos. Personally, it feels to me like you give up way too much power by having both of them in the same lists. But I cannot deny, even though I've said this so many times, I cannot deny that people have been having a lot of success using both of them. I think the most common arrangement I see is Alariel and Belthanos together. And then the second most common is just Alariel. And then finally, just Belthanos is kind of a distant third. And then after that, I really don't see any lists that have neither of them in there that are lists that are doing very well. And just in case that sentence was confusing, of the lists that I see doing well, I don't see them running without Belthanos or Alariel. It's either one or the other, or both. I see Spirit of Durthu a lot. This is pretty universal. Even whether it's with Alariel or whether it's with Belthanos, I pretty much always see the Spirit of Durthu. Maybe not always. Very common include is the Spirit of Durthu. Then I pretty much always see at least one of the Kurnoth Hunters. I see the Great Bows a lot. I see the swords a lot. I don't really see the scythes quite as much. So the way people build their lists is with usually one of these 3 reinforced, and then they kind of play the list according to that. And then you can take or leave the Tree Revenants and the Gossamed Archers to be able to score points, or battle tactics. And then I very, very rarely see like Spite Rider Lancers or the Revenant Seekers. So there's kind of for such a small range that we have, it's not completely tiny, but we have a pretty small range. But there's actually a pretty big variety in the way that people are building their lists, but still having success. But I did just want to share that those are the kind of patterns that I'm seeing in the lists that are doing pretty well on YouTube, and as well as reviewing tournament lists and things like that. Yeah, let me know if you do want me to do a video taking a look at tournament lists and that did well in tournaments and talking about what their thought process may have been, kind of what may have made those lists good. I thought about doing that for this video, but I didn't know if people would want that, and so I didn't really necessarily want to do it. But yeah, if that's how people want to see it, I'm happy to do it and kind of give my thoughts on it. I do love looking at lists and talking about them. That's why I used to do some like sample list videos, which were kind of a little bit, yeah, they were okay. It's because at the time I was list building and having fun with that. And that was like the main thing I liked, was thinking about how I could make different lists. But yeah, I do like talking about lists, so I could pull up some tournament lists. If you want to see that video, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, just catching up with me. Very obviously not putting out a ton of videos. At the beginning of the edition, I was super excited to think and talk about how things had changed and what we were going to do. I still have a ton of ideas for videos that I could make. They just don't capture me quite as much as at the beginning of the edition. And I also am much more excited to paint, to build. I do live in a very cold climate in the US, and well, yeah, and so things are getting colder. I'm running out of days where it's going to be possible to prime outside and let my stuff, off gas and dry outside. I do not have a airbrush or anything like that, so I can't prime inside. And I'm also running out of daylight each day. So the number of days is going down, but also the daylight each day. I think, and then things get really cold once the sun goes down too. So a limited time to be able to prime stuff. So I'm working on really building everything that I can so that when things get cold, I'll have a backlog of stuff that's built and ready to be painted. Also just having a great time painting things. Maybe before the end of the year, I'll show you guys everything I painted this year. Particularly Sylvaneth stuff, but I do have some Stormcast stuff as well. But yeah, that's it from me. Really appreciate you guys, whatever the schedule, sticking with me and sharing your thoughts, sharing your comments down below. So let me know any of your thoughts. And, if you do like this kind of video, I do have a lot more like it on the channel, a lot more analysis and numbers-based type of things. So feel free to subscribe. And until next time, that's it from me. Hope you guys have a great time, and I'll see you in the next one.